Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote a book called Nature. His book relates to the Transcendentalist, and it relates to how his book, Nature, talks about the self, nature, and individual experience to find the truth. So, in this first chapter, this passage I'm about to read is talking about the self and individual experience. To get started, the first passage I am reading is from Introduction. Our age is retrospective. It builds the sepulchres of the fathers. It builds biographies, histories, and criticism. The foregoing generations beheld God and nature face to face. We, through their eyes, why should not we also enjoy an original relation to the universe? Why should we not have a poetry, philosophy, of insight and not of tradition, and a religion by revelation to us, and not the history of theirs? And blossom for a season in nature, whose floods of life stream around and through us, and invite us by the powers they supply to action proportioned to nature. Why should we grope among the dry bones of the past, or put the living generation into masquerade out of its faded wardrobe? The sun shines today also. There is more wool and flax in the fields. There are new lands, new men, new thoughts. Let us demand our own works and laws and worship. This passage relates and connects to the overall point of this chapter or passage is by how it's so into nature and the self. Find the truth. It talks about the nature, it talks about for a season in nature and floods of life stream around. That's referring to a river or a creek that's flowing. This passage spoke to me because it reminded me of an experience that I had a few years ago with my own stepmother. Me, my dad, my stepmom, and 4 of my other siblings were sitting at the dinner table, and I remember that my stepmother tried to push her own opinions and thoughts and her perspective into our lives. She tried telling us how we needed to dress, how we needed to act, like how our hair had to be, how long and how short for men and girls, how long and short, how our manners should be, that women should stay in the kitchen and men should be out working. That was my experience. And this passage is talking about how we need to move on from our past and our histories. We need to move on. We need to leave all that behind. As it says in the passage, there are new lands, new men, new thoughts. Let us demand our own works and laws and worship. That is saying that we need to leave the past. It's saying that we need to make our own perspective, our own opinions for criticism and history and biographies. We just need to move on from what we were taught and what we learned from our ancestors who had different opinions and perspectives. It's just showing us that we need to see on in the future rather than staying in the past, which is what this passage is saying, is that we need to leave the past in the past and move on in the future and leave everything behind, as it is saying that there are new minds and new thoughts, and that means a new perspective. So that is what my experience is talking about. It's my stepmom bringing up how she was brought up and her life needed to be brought up the way that we need to be brought up, rather than you pushing all of your opinions and all of your perspectives into us. I do not follow what she has brought up. I do not follow her opinions. I do not follow her perspective. I don't follow her traditions, as I like to believe that I would rather do something else rather than listening to someone who is trying to force all of this on me. At the end of the passage, it's basically Emerson talking about the Transcendentalist. That's how he's talking. It's talking about the self, and that there are new lands, new men, new thoughts. He's saying that we need to look to ourselves for the truth, which is why he wrote what he wrote. It's basically just him telling us that we need to look to our inner selves to find our truth. It's basically just him saying that we need to look into our inner selves by not listening to other people's criticism and thoughts and opinions. We need to leave those alone or not listen to them and find our inner selves, our own opinion, our own perspective. We have to find that in order to find the truth.